My name is Tara Capel. I'm a research fellow from the Queensland University of Technology in Brisbane, and I'll be presenting our work on the making of women, creating trajectories for women's participation in makerspaces. The ideology that underpins many makerspaces is that they are inclusive and founded on the universal concept of being open for all. However, a common issue identified in regards to makerspaces is a lack of diversity within them. The universality purported by many makerspaces assumes everyone can participate equally, while in practice many women avoid spaces that they find to be overtly male-dominated. Research in CSCW and HCI is becoming increasingly interested in identifying and reducing the barriers to women's participation within makerspaces. One intervention is the creation of women-orientated makerspaces, commonly referred to as feminist hackerspaces. However, even when women only, such spaces can still be an intimidating environment to enter if you have little to no previous skills or experience, where many women need to already be part of maker cultures before feeling comfortable or able to participate within them. Therefore, increasing women's participation in conventional makerspaces goes beyond the creation of women-only spaces, towards providing women opportunities to learn and develop skills around materials and tools they may not have had access to, in a space where they feel comfortable to develop their competencies and confidence. Our study aims to explore how makerspaces can be more inclusive of women, which we investigated through a women-only makerspace. The women-only makerspace we investigated runs workshops to provide practical skills to women in using power tools and woodworking, and has taught over 700 women through their structured workshops, where participants learn different skills within the context of a particular project. The workshops are planned by the founder and lead instructor and run by either herself or one of the 3 women instructors employed there. The women-only makerspace is located within a residential suburb in a major city in Australia. The makerspace operates out of a large shed in an industrial estate, but is set up to reflect the feel of a home workshop. Each class begins with the participants gathering at the back of the workshop, where seats are set up in a semicircle around a whiteboard. The founder introduces herself and the women-only makerspace, and then asks each of the participants to introduce themselves and their reasons for attending. After the introduction, each of the participants move to one of the workbenches of varying heights set up in the middle of the workshop and starts to collect the tools they will require for each part of the activity from the shadow boards at the back of the workshop. There were 4 workshops offered by the women-only makerspace that we observed. These were Introduction to Power Tools, Creating with Pallets, Woodworking 101, and Build Your Own Workbench. At the conclusion of each workshop, participants are added to a private Facebook group created as a virtual space beyond the physical women-only makerspace, where women could continue to learn and collaborate. We spent 6 months undertaking participant observations in the women-only makerspace and attended 22 workshops in total. During this time, we conducted 13 contextual interviews, 12 with participants who had attended the workshops during our 6-month observation, as well as the founder and lead instructor of the organisation. While participants within the space came from a diverse range of backgrounds, over their lifetime many had either not been allowed or were actively discouraged from participating in or learning about woodwork, power tools, and similar activities. We found 4 phases of participation within the women-only makerspace and the trajectories that were created from this participation. The 4 phases describe pathways to participation, enablers of participation, how participation in the makerspace was structured, and the impacts of that participation. Amongst the participants, there was a range of different trajectories observed through these 4 levels of participation. Some participants attended one workshop, acquired the skills they needed, and then did not return to the space, whereas others returned to complete other workshops. Some also then went on to participate within other makerspaces beyond the women-only makerspace, begin apprenticeships in related fields, and create makerspaces of their own. I will highlight one particular participant's trajectory and participation through the women-only makerspace, who I will refer to as Therese. Therese was an active participant within the women-only makerspace and also one of their biggest advocates, attending 4 of the workshops on offer. The pathway into the women-only makerspace for Therese started with a series of life disruptions that had led her to pursue a creative outlet. After 20 years working for the same company, she had been made redundant, which she saw as an opportunity to take some time for herself. Having suffered from depression for the past 12 years, she was looking forward to focusing on different areas of her life, including hobbies and personal development. She had started to collect antique pieces of furniture and wanted to upcycle them, but was looking to learn some basic skills first. She started searching online for women-only workshops that taught skills in woodwork and power tools. The only course matching what she was looking for was the women-only makerspace. This quote is how she described her participation in the women-only makerspace, in particular a Build Your Own Workbench workshop. I've learned so many skills and learned about myself. When I was at the Build Your Own Workbench course, my friend texted me and said, "How's it going?" I'm like, "I'm sweaty, I'm exhausted, I've got sawdust all over me, but I'm loving it. It's hard, but that's part of the achievement. You don't want to do something that's easy, and that challenge is really good and it makes you feel good when you succeed." One impact of participation for Therese has been on her well-being. Due to her mental health, sometimes the women-only Makerspace workshops were the only social interaction she had had in some time, and the only activity she had participated in for that week. She enjoyed attending the workshops as it was a way for her to get out and talk to other people. A further impact has been that Therese has set up her own workshop in the garage of her home. After attending the Build Your Own Workbench course, she went home and used the skills she had learned to create another workbench for her workshop. Therese has become an advocate who cares for others interested in making. Her friends will both use her workshop to create their own projects and also ask her to do projects for them. She hopes to create her own space similar to the women-only Makerspace. In looking back at her own trajectory, it surprises Therese that she now identifies as a maker, as she never saw herself as a creative type of person. She also finds her making activities help with her depression and also enjoys the process of making something with her hands. She finds it more physical and it's something she did not think that she could do. Based on our findings, we contribute 3 core qualities to the CSCW community designed to create trajectories for women's participation in makerspaces: women only but without a feminist label, configuring a formal and collaborative learning environment, and reification through artifacts. These qualities are inspired by feminist HCI, legitimate peripheral participation, communities of practice, and materialist feminism. I will briefly describe them here, but please see the paper for the qualities in more detail. One of the key qualities of the Makerspace in this study was that it was women only and designed and run specifically for women. It was this quality that largely enabled participation of women in the spirit of the feminist HCI qualities of pluralism and participation. The participants generally sought out the space where the women-only element was something that they were actively looking for. Without it, they would have assumed that the space wasn't for them. Although it is evident that the women-only Makerspace is inherently feminist, the founder avoided labeling the space as such, as she felt that it may alienate some women who may have otherwise participated, largely due to the politics around feminism. We also found many of our participants resisted labeling the space as feminist and rejected the notion that the space may be feminist in nature. This was largely due to the associations with the negative stereotype of feminism being pro-women in such a way that it discriminates against men. In the interest of increasing participation of women in makerspaces, particularly in these more traditionally male-dominated areas, labeling them as feminist could be contributing to the barriers of participation and is an important consideration when labeling makerspaces for women. Within the women-only Makerspace, the formal and collaborative learning environment was configured through structured workshops, resulting project artifacts, and the design of the space that enabled access to both the tools and materials as well as instructors and other participants. Conventional makerspaces typically facilitate an informal learning environment. In contrast, the various structured workshops run by the women-only Makerspace created a formal learning environment. This was important as due to the gendered associations ingrained in society around workspaces, materials, and tools, many of our participants had little to no previous experience with woodwork and power tools. This formal learning environment legitimized participation for women without prior experience in woodwork and power tools, and it also set women on a learning trajectory to develop the confidence, competence, and identity to participate in other makerspaces that are more informal and open to everyone. In this sense, the structured workshops can be seen as empowering rather than disempowering for this group of women in that it enabled support and inclusion. The workshops in the Makerspace itself also enable collaboration and social participation. The creation of trajectories is central to the workshops and to creating a collaborative learning environment where women shared stories and experiences and had opportunities to visualize what they could do based on what other women within the space could do. Beyond participation within the physical space, participating within the Women-Only Makerspace's virtual workshop was also part of the participants' learning trajectory. The virtual workshop was created as a collaborative online community that enabled participants continued and ongoing learning beyond the physical space, but in a more informal way than the structured workshops. Building upon the women-only quality, these elements used to configure a formal and collaborative learning environment also further facilitated participation within the women-only Makerspace. Consequently, these elements are important to consider when creating spaces to support participants' learning and collaboration within making domains that are typically male-dominated. The final quality resides in the artifacts made by women in the Makerspace and the interplay between making and meaning. Along with being an important element in configuring a formal and collaborative learning environment, the project artifact also gave form to each participant's experience in the workshop and the women-only Makerspace and was an important part of their participation. During the workshop learning process, the participant creates the artifact, while the process of creating the artifact guides and reaffirms the learning process. At the completion of the workshop, each participant had created an artifact that they were able to then take home with them that had a practical use within their home. We contribute 3 qualities of makerspaces that foster participation of women that both characterise and can guide further creation of such makerspaces. While individually these qualities appear in other makerspace environments such as feminist hackerspaces, it is the constellation of these qualities that contributes a new perspective on the creation of makerspace environments for women. We intend for these qualities to inform and guide the creation of new kinds of spaces for CSCW research within computing and technology, which can in turn further inform knowledge about qualities of and strategies for creating new types of makerspaces for learning and collaboration.